So again, I'm going to say good morning again. This is Paula Newcomb, and I'm the Northeast Regional Coordinator from the Indiana State Library's Professional Development Office. I am at the Indiana State Library this morning, and I'll be the host and question moderator for today's webinar, Wix Wizardry, Free Websites in a Flash. So welcome everybody, and very glad that you could join us today. I want to thank Alexander Hampton for presenting, and he is a computer lab assistant at the Central Library of the Indianapolis Public Library. So before we begin, I want to start off with a few housekeeping items. To register for other trainings available at the Professional Development Office, please check out the Indiana State Library's events calendar, which can be found at our website at www.in.gov/library. The Indiana State Library has many ways that we try to stay connected to Library State across the state. For weekly upcoming trainings and to learn more about what's happening in libraries across the state, please subscribe to our weekly e-newsletter, The Wednesday Word. Sound issues. If you have any sound issues during the webinar, please see the sound issues box just below the chat box on the left side of the screen. If there's a global sound issue, we will announce it in the chat box. If you are unable to resolve the sound issues that you're experiencing, please know that we are recording the webinar and you can watch it offline after the webinar is over. This webinar will also be available on our archived webinars page after it's been uploaded to YouTube and transcribed. So again, if there's a global sound issue, we will make an announcement in the chat box. LEUs, your LEU will be available for download at the end of the webinar. We'll have that document available for you to download, so make sure you are signed on until the end of the presentation to get your LEU, which is actually a TLEU today. And questions. If you have a question, just type it in the chat box on the upper left side of the screen. We'll get to your questions as soon as there's a good opportunity, and there should also be a good time near the end for questions. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn the mic over to Alexander, and we're going to get his presentation on the screen.
Okay, good morning. So we are going to share this. Okay, so like Paula said, I'm a computer lab assistant for the Central Library with the Indianapolis Public Library. So what I spend a lot of my time doing is helping people use computers and actually also teaching computer classes. So one of the things that we have taught for a long time is how to build websites with Wix. So what I want to cover first is just some basic overview stuff about why we like Wix as a product and some of the nice features that it has. So why would you choose to use Wix as your website? Because building it is very easy. It's a drag and drop kind of control. It's pretty fast to put things together. There are a lot of pre-made templates that you can use. And just kind of swap their content for your content. Makes it simple. With Wix, you have some nice free options. They provide a large selection of free images that you're allowed to use just because you have an account with them. So you don't necessarily have to go hunting for all the stock photos and check the licenses for the images you might be interested in using because they have a lot that's already there for you. You also have some free storage, even just with your free account. They allow you a certain amount of files and photos that you might upload on your own that you can include on your site. And you also have access to support. We like their support forums, the way that they organize things to help get questions from users answered is really nice. And of course, it's all online. Now, this is one of those things that can be an advantage and a disadvantage, but in a lot of circumstances, it's great to be able to put a website together and it's completely online. You don't have to download or install anything to your own machine, and it's also something you can access and edit from, any computer, whether you're, in this office or that office or traveling, you can access it and make changes. So all you need to start with Wix is an email address that you can get into and to create a password. It's just that easy to sign up. And as far as what they offer, with a free site, it does affect your web address. So essentially, you are given a username when you sign up. Your username is based upon the email address that you use to sign up. So if your email is iloveindiana72, Wix will probably assign you a username that has part of that or most of that in it. Your username is something totally unique just based on your email address. You can change it if you want to kind of match more with the sort of website you're creating. If the email address you use doesn't really align with your website purposes, you can change it if you want. And then because you have a free site, you will have wixsite.com in the middle of your address, and then at the end you have what you've actually named your website. So I'll show you how that works with the site that I've built. And then with a free site, you also have branding banners up in the top and across the bottom. And so as long as you have a free site, there isn't anything that you can do to get rid of those. They show up on every page, whether you scroll up or down or sideways. Depending on your purposes, that might work just fine. For what we do with our students, we don't have a problem. But that's one of those things that one of the perks of actually subscribing to Wix is that branding banners like that do go away. And they offer a range of hosting plans if you do consider upgrading. It is something that changes. They run a lot of specials, so this is just kind of an overview that I grabbed, I think, in July, but it fluctuates. It goes up and down, so you can catch really good deals different times a year. Once you're signed up with Wix, they, of course, love to send you email that advertises when they are offering specials on their plans. So if you're interested in using it in a more serious professional way, it's pretty reasonable prices for some of these things. And then I also want to show you just a few of the different kinds of templates that you can use. There are hundreds and hundreds of these, and they're all really nice looking, very professional. So I just picked out 6 little different ones kind of to show you some of the range of different things that sort of could be done with this, and some different choices that people might make. So the way this is actually set up, this feature, because this is a Wix website that I'm showing you, this is a gallery feature. So essentially I've taken a picture of all of these templates and then created a link so that when I click on the picture, it shows me a little preview of it and it gives me a link out to that template. So with this ice cream website, this is a design that sort of moves a lot as you scroll. It's extremely visual. And it's apparently taking a little bit of time to load here. Sorry, I'm going to ruin everybody's morning by making you look at pictures of ice cream. But it's a really nice kind of, as you scroll down, stuff happens. So this sort of design is very horizontal. It's something that you would need access to really nice high-resolution, large images to be able to, create something like this. But if you like the way that this looks, imagine that you have a site that's about, I don't know, car repair instead of ice cream. You could swap all these ice cream pictures out for pictures of cars and tires and auto parts, and it would be the same idea, just the content's different. So that's one. And then this one is a personal trainer website, and this is an example of a design that instead of having lots of different pages, the whole page is created with what are called anchors, so that as somebody scrolls down the page, they're essentially hitting all those different anchor points, and if it will consent to load, I can show you that. But essentially, you can either scroll through the page or somebody could click through the menu and it would take them to those different points all on the same page. So those are a little bit easier to put together. It really doesn't want to load, does it? I'm sorry, everybody. It's letting me down here. Nope? Okay. All right, we'll try another one. This one, which is about a pretend conference. I like this one because it's a good example of how the templates are sometimes contain links that really go places and that might even point you towards some references or tools that you hadn't thought about using. So with this website, there's a register page that your users could click on, and if you actually go into that registration, it takes you over to Eventbrite, which is a real website that people commonly use to book events. And so there are a lot of those little kinds of things sort of almost hidden in some of the Wix templates, that if there's a particular purpose to that site and there is a real world tool that makes sense, a lot of times they just build it into the template. So you might discover some nice tools just from clicking around. This one's for a preschool, and this one has a photo gallery in it, and it also has like a calendar that highlights the different events for this, pretend school. These are really lagging on me. I'm sorry. But you get the idea that you can do almost anything with these sites, and it's really easy to switch what they give you as a template for something else. So here's our news and events page. And all of these links to sign up would take you to a little form that you could fill out that allows you to actually register for any of these different events. Okay, so because that's lagging so much, I'll just kind of talk about some of the other ones.
They actually say it's not doing too bad.
It's not doing too bad? Okay, well, I've got a portfolio site that essentially has pages that are hidden. So the way that it's designed, you've got a home page that has all these projects on it, and then as you click the project, it launches onto its own page, but that page doesn't appear in the menu because it's been hidden. So that's a nice way to kind of make a design choice. So you can have lots of different pages, you have different content for all these different projects, but you only have a few things that actually appear on your menu. So you can kind of cut down on the navigation having a lot of content, but you do in fact have a separate page for everything on here. Okay, one more is a tour guide site. So it's just got a lot of information about fictional trips. And the reason that I would like to show this one is because it's got a forum integrated with it. And that's actually kind of a newer tool this year for Wix, that you can actually build forum spaces into your site for free that your site users could use to communicate with each other. So I think that's a really nice tool that you can choose to use. Let's see if I can get it to load here. So they have these all separated out by, where in the world, since it's a travel site, and people could come in here and create posts, comment on other people's posts, and that's just something you can include in your Wix website. Okay, so that's kind of the overview for some of the basic features of Wix and the templates. So what I want to talk you through is actually using the tool. So I'm going to switch tabs here. And now I had been showing you this website, which is actually published. It's live on the web. If you typed this into your browser, you could get to the same site that I'm looking at. But in the second tab, I'm in my editor mode. So it's the same site, but I've got a lot more controls and markings on the screen. So the first thing you see when you open any template in Wix is these grid lines that are across the top and the bottom, and at the right and the left. So the one across the top marks the bottom of the header, and the one across the bottom, if I went to the bottom of the page, would mark the top of the footer. So just like with any document, if you're familiar with Microsoft Word or pretty much anything else, whatever you put in the header for your website is going to appear at the top of every page you create, and everything you put in the footer at the bottom is going to appear at the bottom of every page you create. So those are great places for your navigational things, your site titles, your menus, things like that, so that your users can always find that stuff on any page you design. And then these horizontal page boundaries are essentially helping you make sure that what you design is going to be visible and look nice for people across all kinds of devices and all screen sizes.
Have you ever used Squarespace?
I am not personally a Squarespace user. No. A little bit about, maybe this is a good point to talk about why we chose to teach Wix over some of the other ones. And that's mostly because we think they do a great job of labeling their tools, that pretty much everything is kind of presented with a nice clarity. We did look at Weebly and some of the other things, WordPress, and ultimately decided that this made more sense for our students because of that, and also because we like their support features and their help videos so much. Okay, so those are our grid lines. And then this right here on the side is our main menu. So the first, I would say, 3 or 4 buttons are always the same. Some of the ones at the bottom change based on what they're trying to promote, the new features that they may have added, the things that they want people to be aware that they can add to their site, this week or this month. But across the top, we've got our background, so we could change the background of all of our pages or just one of them. The add button, which is a major tool, you use this to do almost everything on your site. Adding text, images, galleries, videos, social media buttons, pretty much anything you can do from the add button. Everything that you can't do from the add button, you can do from the next one, which is the app market, and we will talk about that a little bit later. App market essentially gives you access to little pre-made programs or features you can integrate into your Wix website. And then there's usually an uploads button over here that just allows you kind of to upload your own photos or your own content sort of in bulk. If you just want to do that up front and then build your pages as you go, you can use that button. But also any of the add controls where you're allowed to upload things, there are upload controls in there as well. And then you've got menus across the top here. So over here on this side, we've got the pages menu, which allows you to navigate between the different pages that you build on your site, as well as edit different things about them. So we will play with that in a little bit. You can manage your site. You can save and preview it from over here. You can also manage your site, look at your site history, as well as access the help features or upgrade you can do from this side. And then over here, you have kind of more obviously the save, preview, and publish buttons. So save saves your work. You should click it really every time you change anything, just so it keeps saving online. Versus publish, which is actually launching the website out into the world so that other people can see it who are not logged into your account. Preview is sort of in the middle. You are able to look at your site the way that your users see it as you're in the editor mode. So you can switch between the editor mode I'm in right now and preview, so it shows me all the grid lines disappear, the menus disappear. So as you design and build things, you can quickly look at what your users would see, and then you just click back to editor to go back into that full editor mode. You can zoom in and out, which is really handy if you are organizing long pages, because you kind of get a bird's eye view of what's going on there, and you can actually pick up whole sections and move them around and reorder them. So that's a tool that I actually use a lot on my own site. And then the almighty undo and redo buttons. Undo is extremely helpful anytime you accidentally do something that you don't mean to do. You make a choice that maybe you're instantly not happy with. You delete something just accidentally, you can use undo to change that. And if you change your mind again and you decide that you do like the change, you can hit redo to bring it back. So they're pretty good about giving you those choices. So what I want to do is just kind of walk you through adding some of these things. So if I was going to add text to this page, I would click on the add button and use text at the very top. So there's all kinds of stuff in here. They have titles in lots of different fonts. And if I scroll far enough, it'll give me little paragraphs. In this case, I'm just going to pick a title, and all I have to do is drag and drop it onto my site. And if I want to change it, I just click on Edit Text, the whole thing becomes selected in blue, and I can change lots of different things about it. So if I want it to be a different font, I can do that. Change the size, can change the color. It kind of gives you a palette of colors based on the template that you're working with. You can change your whole site colors if you want, or if you just, you have a very, this is a very blue and purple and gray kind of template that I have. But if I need an orange, I could come into my colors right here, and I could look through the rainbow to find the right orange that I want. Or if I happen to know any of the numerical codes that you might use to find a color, I could input those codes. So that's especially helpful if you're trying to match, something to an existing graphic, whatever you want. And then when you click Add, it remembers. So these are a lot of the colors that I've used elsewhere on the site. So now it's orange. And there are lots of different effects that I could add. Or if it's a paragraph, ways that I can change the alignment, the indent, whether it's a list or not. All those things I can change. And I can only change it while it's selected. So if I make a change and I click at the end, I could come up here and click whatever buttons I want, and it's not going to change my actual title. I have to select it again to make another change.
Question.
Sure.
Do the effects change based on each template?
Well, like the things that appear in the edit text box, these controls are always the same. And what appears in the add section under text, these don't change based on the template. But what they give you to start with is, stylized or has certain effects to it. So that if you kept using those titles, and typing your own words in those boxes, it would stick with whatever that effect is. But most of the controls don't change. You'll notice that this particular piece of text is the active thing because it's got this thin blue line around it, and we've also got these little circles on the edges. So this allows us to pick it up and move it. We see that four-way arrow when I hover over the box. And the way that I can change how much space it's allowed to take up is by using the little circles and clicking and dragging to change that space that it's allowed to take. So I could make the whole thing very narrow if I wanted to, or make it so that it all fits on one line. So that's text. So let's talk about how we would take a piece of text and turn it into a link. So this is the example that I do in all my classes. I have everybody pick out a paragraph. So again, I just come over to the Add button, go to Text, and when I find the paragraph that I like, I drag and drop it into my space. I'm going to hit Edit Text and make it a little bigger. And then I'm actually going to add some extra text here. So I'm going to right-click here to go to Google. And then if I was going to turn just this sentence into a link, I want to select it, and I could turn one character or one word or a whole block into a link. It doesn't seem to care very much, but I'm just going to stick with the sentence. That makes the most sense here. So once I have it selected, I can come over here to the link button, which lives right under the font size number, if that helps you remember. It looks like a piece of chain link fence. And this box gives me lots of choices. There are actually lots of different kinds of links that you could create. You could have it set up so that it links to a different page on your own site, or so that clicking it launches a new blank email from somebody's email program to a particular address. In our case, though, and the most common one is going to be the fourth one, which is web address. And this is part of why, this is a great example of why I like Wix so much, is because they try to make it very obvious exactly what they want you to do. They ask you, what's the web address, parentheses URL, in case you're more familiar with one term rather than the other, so I think that's really helpful. And then it says paste it here in the box. So they're trying to get you to the idea that you probably don't always want to type your links freehand. It's much more helpful if you go to the website, click in the address bar, copy it, and then paste it into this box so that you won't have any errors and your links will all really work. In this case, just for the sake of time, I am going to type it. So this is a case of do as I say, not as I do. So once I have my web address in there, I can also choose whether I want it to open in a new window or tab or in the current window. We always recommend new window for this, just because that makes it easier for somebody to get back to your site, because your site hasn't been replaced with the link, it's just open in the next window or in the next tab. So overall, I think that's the better choice, but if you would like it to replace your site, you could choose to do that. And once I click done, I can see that there's something different about my text. Now it's underlined. So depending on the template that you're using, the way that this text that's now a link looks different may change. You know, the styling choices based on templates can be different, but in this case it's just very plain, it's just underlined. So then if I do preview, click on preview, I now see my site as my user sees it. I can see the sentence that I've just turned into a link. And when I click on it, I should get a brand new Google tab. So it really is just that easy to link out to the rest of the web from your Wix editor. And the fun part would be adding images. So this is always my favorite section of class. So again, you use the add button, and instead of using text at the top, you just come down to images. And actually, all of these buttons give you basically the same control. So we'll just click on one of them, and it brings up this panel.
Quick question. How
Sure.
does the site scale for mobile devices?
So there is a separate mobile editor that allows you to rearrange your content to accommodate mobile users. There are some features that just don't translate very well, apps that don't look as good, or the way that you've laid things out just doesn't really make as much sense on a smaller screen. So you're able to sort of have two versions of your site going at once. And I'm going to show you an example of kind of how that's distorted. So the Choose Images panel gives you basically 4 different areas here. I started in the Free from Wix area. This is broken down into categories, so if you know you're looking for animals, you can come into animals, or art, you can come into art. You can also search if you know that there's a particular thing that you're looking for. So all of these things that are in this area are yours to use in your Wix site, whether it's commercial or private or not, they don't care. So they've essentially obtained the rights to use these things. You can also use big stock images at a discount. Because you're a Wix user, even if you have a free account, you would be paying less for big stock images than you would be paying if you just went to big stock separately. So they've sort of negotiated a partnership there. They also make it easy to connect all of your social media and cloud storage things, so that if you have an Instagram of all the cupcakes for your cupcake business, you can just connect that and then instantly use all those photos that you've already taken and probably already edited a little bit just with your Wix site. And then you can use My Images to upload whatever it is from your own computer. Once you find a photo that you want to use, so you can see this is the dog that I use in class all the time, all you have to do is click on the image that you want. You get a blue line around it and a little white check mark. And when you click on Add to Page, it adds that image, apparently twice, to your page. And sort of like with the text, we can tell when it's active because it's got a blue line around it, and it's got little circles on the corners and on the sides. If I rest my mouse over the middle of it, I get that 4-way directional arrow, and I can drag it around to position it. And sometimes you'll notice these little pink guidelines that pop up that may help you align to like the center of the page or the center of the header, just kind of to make it easier. And sometimes you'll even see them pop up for surrounding elements. So if you're trying to align images or text together, you can use those guidelines to make that easier. So with an image like this, it's, again, sort of similar to text, but the little white circles actually function a little bit differently. The ones on the right and left and the top and bottom sort of distort the size. It's almost like cropping it maybe in ways you didn't intend. Sometimes it sort of snaps to what you're intending, but it's not a good way to crop your image, so I always recommend that people avoid using the the right, left, top, and bottom circles if they're trying to resize or crop your image. If you just need it to be bigger or smaller, you want to use the corners. Any of the four corners allow you to change the size of that image without actually distorting it or losing any of the edges that you might want to keep. And you can do a lot with images. There are a number of controls across here. There are lots of different places where you can turn an image into a link. I always caution my students about doing this because you want to make sure that if you turn a picture of a dog into a link that goes somewhere, that you've got some labeling that explains why that happens. You wouldn't want to just turn this dog into a link to Google because that can be very confusing for your users. But you can, if there is a reason that you need to turn an image into a link, there are lots of opportunities. You can do it from the Settings tab. There's a whole separate Link tab that brings up that box that we saw earlier. You could link it to any of these things just the same as a piece of text. With the Design button, which sort of looks like a paintbrush, there are a lot of different frames, some of which even kind of change the shape that you could choose from. Some of them have like a nice shadow effect, or look like they've been pinned or taped to the background, which is kind of nice. If you're intending to crop it, there's a crop button that you could use to deliberately cut it down. It's not the most powerful image editor in the world, but you can do some quick fixes like that. There are some filter effects. So if you just want to very quickly change the look of the image kind of in a simple way, you can do that. And you can also animate it. These are some features that maybe look great, maybe look terrible. It depends on your site. Sort of like with PowerPoint animations, I would say less is probably more. But some of these do look pretty nice, especially if you're building one of those very horizontal, as you scroll things happen sites. So that's the animation tab. So there's a lot that you can do there with images. And then, of course, you don't have to add a single image. You might want to have a whole gallery of stuff. So if that's true, you can use the Add button. And there's a gallery option here. And then the interactive elements or the strip elements can be ways to include really large, sort of full width, big photos. I'm kind of a fan of the regular galleries. Some of those are full width as well that span the whole page. They all have sort of little built-in animations that go with them. Something about the way that you hover over it, it's going to change. And essentially once you choose one, you just click on it and it throws it into the middle. You can position it where you want it. And it's full of just stock images. So you click on Change Images and it's very easy to add different ones. So I could go back out to my own or back to Free from Wix. And in, just a few minutes, I could choose some new images for this gallery. And then I would just come back through with the other ones that I don't want and click the little trash can icon here. I could have different text or descriptions. The pictures could link out to something, the way that I built that other gallery with the template images where all the links went to that template. And that's how I did this, was by putting something in the link box. And when I'm done, I hit done. And now the gallery looks completely different than it did 30 seconds ago. I've got all these animal pictures instead of scenery. So I think these are really nice. And if I do preview, you'll see that there is a little bit of a hover animation to this one. As I hold the mouse over it, it kind of lights up. And there's more than just images and text here. So this section I show buttons, boxes, and shapes. These are all from the Add control, the Add button. So I could come to the button section and pick out any of these different shapes in any of these colors that might link to really anything. Let's go with Adopt a Penguin. So I could choose that button and then I could change the text. So maybe it's not a penguin. Maybe it's a tiger. And then I could also change the design of the button. So maybe I like the layout, but I don't really like the color. Could turn it orange. turn up the opacity in this case. And now it looks a little bit different than it did. And of course, you can turn it into a link to anything. So they make it very easy for you to make your own buttons. And then I think shapes are kind of similar. You might use these as links, you might use these as design features, but there are all sorts of arrows that point to things and lots of different common pieces of iconography. So for example, you might choose to use a phone icon and have that link out to your phone directory or something like that. And of course, all these shapes, you can change the color, you can change whether they have borders around them or not, and you could have it animated. So a lot of these controls sort of repeat through the different elements. And then another thing you can add to kind of make your life a lot easier is a box. So they usually give you themed boxes that go with whatever your template is. What you really want to look for are things that are called container boxes. So container box can come in lots of different shapes or colors, and of course you could change the shape or color later if you start with one and you decide you don't like it. But let me just add this one. So what a container box is great for is that you can add other elements to it. See how it says attach to box right there? So I could make all these choices to have these shapes become part of this box and then move the box around later. So if I just want to be able to lay out a small section of my elements and then decide where on the page I'm actually going to put it later, it's pretty easy to do that with a container box. So I like all of those features very much. And this one, so I already have a video in here. So you can also add video from the add button. It gives you the ability to link to a video that might be somewhere else, like YouTube or Facebook or Vimeo. If that's what you want to do, they make it very easy to just put in the web address of that video wherever it lives, and it becomes watchable on your site. If you don't like that, if you don't have YouTube or Facebook and you don't want to add video that way, you can also upload video through Wix. There is a size limit here for how big it can be, but they will host your videos for you. Okay, so it's a 15 gig max for their video space. That seems like a lot. I wonder if that's your whole video space or what. But they do give you some options for uploading. Yes?
Someone wants to know, is there a way to check how many people visit your website?
There are analytics tools that you can add. It's not something I have a whole lot of personal experience with because we spend all our time sort of building sites. I don't always see the finished product. But there are ways to check that stuff out. You have this dashboard section for every site that you build. So there are certain ways to get into those analytics thing. I guess if you're going to use actual Google Analytics, that's part of an upgraded plan, so you may not have much access to that stuff for a free video. I think there are probably also like counters if you just want like a total count in the App Store, or sorry, App Market in Wix terminology, App Market. Another question that I get a lot is how do I add documents on my site? That's a thing that people, especially people that are building these things for classwork or for their graduate projects, they need to be able to include the PowerPoint that they've built and the paper that they've written, and that comes in from the add button also, all the way down at more at the bottom. There's a lot of stuff that they've kind of stuffed into this more category. Places to actually embed code or flash players. And if you come down far enough, you get to the document buttons. And so the way that these work is you pick whichever style of button you want. You just kind of decide. And then you can link it to a document that you have uploaded. If you haven't uploaded any documents, it would prompt you to do so. So I can just choose that Word document and click Add to Page. So what my users get then is a button that they can click on and download my document.
Someone wants to know, do you have an option to make the site private or control who can see it? Not sure if they mean before they publish it, maybe?
Like to have it, well, I know there's a login tool that you can add from the App Store. I've actually never had anybody ask me that before. I mean, I think overall these are sort of designed to be public on the web and accessible rather than like a private group. But I think I've seen something. Let me think about that. I'll try to come back to that.
Okay, thanks.
So having added this Word document, when I go to preview, if my user clicks on that, it would actually download a copy of that document. And they can open and view it on their own computer. Let's see if it'll load here. Okay, so we can actually see a little bit of the document that we've added here. And I'll go back to my editor. So you can do that with PowerPoint, Excel sheets, PDFs. It's pretty nice. Okay, and we're gonna talk about the app market also. So there are lots of things here that are not included in the add button section. Oddly, there is some overlap. Sometimes you'll find the same features in both places, but there are also things in the app market that aren't anywhere else. Wix is big on the category organization of things. They do this with their templates, with their images, with their apps. They want you to be able to figure out, what sort of things, I'm building an online store, so you could go to that category, or you do photography, so you go to that category. They've conveniently put together a free app section. So a lot of the things in the app market are free, and then a lot of them you have to pay for. I've seen two major models for paid apps, and that would be either you can have a free trial for a certain period of time, and if you want to keep using it, you'd have to pay something, or you have some of the features for free, and if you want the full version of the app, you can pay for it. You can also search for particular things that you might want. So I'm going to search for maps, and you can see just in the listings whether it's free or free/premium. So you kind of know what you're getting into before you actually add it to your site. In our case, we want the first one. It's just Google Maps. So when I click on Add to Site, it actually, I think it throws it all the way to the top or the bottom, so I'm going to have to go get it and bring it down. Yeah. So my map currently shows the Wix office in, I think, California, which isn't terribly helpful for me in Indianapolis. I don't really need a corporate Wix map. And maybe this is a good place to also talk about page size. So your Wix pages expand and contract based on how much stuff you have added to them. So if you know that you're going to be laying out a lot of content, one little trick is to take a small image, maybe a shape or an icon, or a small one letter of text, and drag it really far down your page so that you have access to a lot of space to lay your design out and get it arranged the way you want. And then if you find that you don't end up needing all that space, you can simply move the thing farthest towards the bottom back up, and your whole page will shrink. So they just give you the space that essentially you ask for. So for something like this, we've got to change address control, and all I have to do is type in a new address, and a new label, and it instantly jumps to your new map, your new label. And if we go out to preview with this one, you can actually zoom in and out. I can show you all where I usually am. which is somewhere around here. That's my lab right in that corner. So that's a really nice one. I like the Google Map App Market tool a lot because it's something that's going to be, used for all kinds of different sites. Pretty much everybody has a reason to direct users to a location for some purpose. So this is a nice free way to do that. But there's a lot of stuff in here. It's not just the maps. You can add your forum stuff from here. You can create forms for people to subscribe to things or get in touch with you. You can do chat stuff, embed HTML, take bookings. There's a lot here. You can also add new pages, and that's something you actually don't do with the add button. That's something you do with the pages menu up here at the top. If you click on that, you get a big blue add page button at the bottom. And when you have a couple choices here, but if you click on page for add a new page, all you have to do is name it and click done, and that page exists. The pages menu also lets you change the order that these pages display in. And that's important because the order that they appear here in this menu dictates the order that they show up in your menu if you add an automatic menu for navigation. You can also do lots of things here like rename your page. So if you have a template and the page that you have, you like it, but you're going to use it for a different purpose than it is in the template, you can just change the name. If you create a page that you really like, maybe you have 10 products and you want to have a product page for each of them, you can create product page number 1 and then duplicate it for product number 2, change all your stuff out for product number 2, rename it product 2, and go on. So you have the ability to save yourself a lot of work just with the duplicate tool. If you've made a page you like, just make a copy of it and make some changes. You can hide pages so that they are not part of your site. So I have an outline that I have down here for this class when I was putting this presentation together originally, so that I could look at it while I'm building along, when I'm putting my site together, but you wouldn't actually see it as part of my menu or anywhere on my site because it's hidden. I can make something a sub-page. So, when you are creating a menu, you need to have the ability to decide what actually you have room for in your menu, and if you would like other pages to show up when somebody hovers over those menu pages, you could turn them into sub-pages. You can also delete stuff. And Wix is very good about putting that in red, nice warning color for are you sure you want to delete the page? So again, if you have a template that has many more pages than you could use delete to get rid of the extra stuff that you don't need. And of course, if you do that in error, you delete a page you didn't want to delete, you just come up here and click undo and it'll give it back to you. So all is definitely not lost there. So I think that's the bottom of my site structure page. Yeah. So we are going to talk about menus over here. So you do add your menu from the add button. So a little further down than the middle. And there are lots of different menu templates that you can choose. They almost give you too many choices for stuff like this. And once you've picked it out, you can change almost everything about it. So you just click on it to add it. And I want to make sure that it's up here in my header so that my users can find it for whatever page that they are looking at. And you get this nice confirmation that it's been added to your header in case you hadn't meant to do that. Every time you add something up there, it'll tell you that you added it there unless you ask it to stop. So your menu order, again, is dictated by the order of things over here in the Pages menu. And if I wanted it to look very different than it does, I could come into Design, and I could get very particular with this. I can come into Customize and change all the colors and shadows and borders that I want. With a menu, most menus, you're going to actually have 3 different sets of choices that you can make. You can have all these color choices for when it just sits there, when you're hovering over it, and once somebody has clicked on one of those buttons. So just to kind of make this simple, so regular, it's sort of this navy blue, and when I hover over it, I'm going to turn it green, and when somebody's clicked on it, it's going to be pink. So if I go look at that in my preview section, right now I'm on the menus page, so it's pink. When I hover over the other ones, it turns green. I can see my sub pages that appear here. So you really have a lot of control about what your menu looks like.
And I know you've got lots of stuff packed into this. We've got about 10 more minutes.
I've got one more page.
All right. And then
so I want to show you all the mobile versus desktop view. So this is, we touched on this a little bit earlier, that you basically have two versions of your site. You can have your desktop site, which is what we've been working on the whole time, and you also have a mobile version. So here you see a desktop large picture. It's got some text, and there's some images down here. If I click on the mobile editor, it will show it to me as it would appear on a smartphone or tablet screen, smaller screen. So instantly we notice that, well, the images at the bottom look pretty much the same, but the whole text thing looks like it's disappeared. And so if I wanted to have it appear more like it does on the desktop, I'd have to find that text layer and kind of bring it back. If there is something about one of these images that I don't like, I don't think it looks very good, I can hide any of these elements, ask them not to appear on my mobile version. And I could save that, and it has no effect on my desktop view at all. I can go straight back to my desktop view, and it looks exactly the same as it did. Nothing is hidden, nothing is moved. You have two versions of your site that go live together all the time. So that's kind of in a nutshell why I like Wix so much, and a lot of the basic controls. Like anything else, it takes practice, but it is very drag and drop, and I think it's a great product. Any other questions popping up?
we got someone typing. Do you want to just show some of the preset, like a template, just
Sure,
to show what they can do with that? And then we'll just see if we have more questions. Got about 8 more minutes left. This is just an amazing amount of information.
So when you go to build a new Wix site, they show you all these different categories. Again, they love categories. They want to make it easy for you to decide, oh, I have a restaurant, so I want a restaurant template. But the truth is you can use any template for any purpose. But there are many of them, and they all have names. So if you end up having particular favorites that you like to design with, you kind of remember the names. So here are some of those restaurant templates. Here are some of the ones for photographers. And so for any of these that you mouse over, you could go straight into editing them, or you could view them, and it should pop up with a little preview that shows you at least most of the pages that are on that site. And one of the nice things about Wix is that it allows you to have lots of different sites connected to one account. So you create one account and you can have, your serious business site, and then your softball team, and then one for fun, and then maybe that's just there for practice so you can try new things. But there's a lot here, and it's really easy to swap any of the stuff on any of these sites for anything else. So if I open this one in the editor, it seems like it has a very dark background. It's very blue looking. So I'll show you how easy it is to change that. So this is very, very blue. So if I go here into background, I could turn this from very blue to all my pages. I can apply to all or just a few. Oh, this is in strips, isn't it? Well, that's a terrible example. Sorry, everybody. See if I can get to one. There we go. Maybe. Saw it for a minute. Okay, let's try one that I know. So this is, again, sort of very dark winter forest type thing. So I can go from just sort of snowy and almost gloomy, kind of foreboding looking, to a totally different atmosphere just by changing the background. So we go from there to bananas in part of a second. But any of these things are easy to change the color. So instead of black, it's yellow, and lime green. Of course, that's much worse looking, but you get the idea. It's very easy to swap any of these things for anything else. You can change existing pictures if you like the arrangement. It's really easy to swap whatever they have for whatever you would rather include. And the way that the text choices are, anything that you type over kind of keeps the same font and size and all that stuff. And of course, you can change it if you want, but they really do make it easy to just come into a template and make it your own very fast.
Great. Yeah, I've seen the templates are all pre-made, so you just have to customize the pages to your own needs, basically.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, I think that's probably going to end it pretty soon. Let's go ahead and see if there's any other questions, comments. We've got Laura from Wabash Public Library. She's been great because they use Wix. So
Great.
Thanks so much for all your comments, Laura. Okay, anybody else have questions? Well, definitely I'll share the presentation, the recording link for you, and probably I'll also give you, is it okay if we give you your email?
Sure. Yeah.
So if you have questions, and we're probably going to go ahead and stop the recording at this point, and I'm going to put up the LEU form. So again, thank you very much to everybody for being